Hey guys, this is BlendMaster here today with another tutorial for you guys, and today I'm going to show you how to create this colorful explosion looking abstract scene. So first thing we're going to do in Blender is delete this lamp, and I'm going to enable Screencast Keys real quickly. So if you look down here you can see exactly what I'm pressing in case there's something you don't understand and I didn't explain it. So I'm going to select this cube and tab into edit mode and move it up by one blender unit by pressing GZ1, and this way the origin is exactly on the bottom of this cube. Now I'm just going to select all of these vertices by holding down shift and right clicking, and I'll press GZ20 to move it up exactly 20 more units. Then I'll tab out of edit mode and I'm going to go to front view and orthographic view by pressing 5 on the numpad. Now I'm going to move this object to layer 2 by pressing M and 2. And when moving it to layer 2, so that way it's not in our scene while we're rendering it, because this is going to be the object this is going to be our particle that's going to be emitted from our emitter, and that's going to be our base object, so we don't want it rendered. So the emitter that we're going to have is going to be half of a cylinder. So all you have to do is add the cylinder and rotate it 90 degrees on the y-axis. Now if we go to side view and tab into edit mode, we'll select all of these faces. I'll go into wireframe so it selects the back ones too. I'll press B to box select, drag, and press X to delete. And then I'll go to front view, select everything again, and press S, X5 so it scales it along the X-axis. Now I'm going to add some loop cuts so that we get perfectly even squares for where our cube will emit from. And to do that, all I have to do is press Ctrl R and scroll up so that way until we get some even squares. And this is about 40 cuts, so I'll just click it and press enter. Now I'll tab out of edit mode, add a subdivision surface modifier, and I'm going to click smooth shading. Now we'll add the particle system. So if you go over here to the right side and open up the particle system panel, we'll create a new system, and this will be a hair type. And I'm going to select advanced so we have some more options to work with. The reason I'm using hair is because all of these particles follow the normals, and if we were to use emission or emitter, then all the cubes will go in one direction together. They won't follow the normals, and it won't look like the explosion that we want. The number, I'm going to set this to the same number of faces we have, and to find that out, all you have to do is look up here, and you can see that there's 2,624 faces. So that's going to be the number of particles we have. And we want it emitting from the faces, and I'll change it from path to object and select the cube we created, and I'll uncheck emitter. As you can see, all these cubes aren't following the rotation we want, so I'll check rotation so it follows the rotation of our cube, and I'll press shift and select our second layer so that we can see everything on the first and second layer. Now I'll select this cube and rotate it so that way everything on the emitter will be rotated as well, so it's the way we want it. So I'm going to rotate this on the y-axis 90 degrees. I'll press enter. Now I'll go to just the first layer, select this cylinder, and I'm going to change the size of this to 0.01, and I'll bring the random size up to 0.5. And I don't want it to be 1 because the higher the random size is, the more drastic the changes will be, and the smaller it is, the less difference there will be. And I think 0.5 is good, but you can choose whatever you like. So that's it for our modeling of the explosion. Now I'm going to set up the camera by going to front view and pressing Ctrl Alt 0. So this snaps our camera to our view. And if I select it and press Alt G, it'll move it exactly to the center of our scene. And I'll press 0 to go back into camera view, press G and then the middle mouse button, and I'll drag it out so that we zoom out until I find a spot that I like, which is about here. Now it's time to set up the materials for our scene, and we're going to be using cycles for this. So if you go up here, you can bring the drop down menu and select cycles. First thing we have to do is set up the light for our scene, and we'll be using a plane for that. So let's just press Shift A, Mesh Plane, and then I'll go side view and rotate it by -45 degrees and scale it up by 5. Now I'm just going to move this behind the camera so it's not rendered in the image, and I'm going to move it up slightly too. For this material, I'm going to name it Light, and I'm going to switch it to an emission shader and make it pure white. This way the light will be shining onto this explosion here and illuminating it so it'll be visible. Otherwise it'll be pure black. I'm going to change the strength to 2.5 also so that it's a little brighter. Now I'm going to go to the world settings and click use nodes and make it black so that there's no global illumination either. So now we have to set up the materials for these cubes, and to do that all you have to do is go to second layer and select this cube, and whatever material you give this, all the other cubes here will have the same exact material. So I'm just going to select use nodes since the cube is still selected, and we can press Shift Z here so that everything is rendered here and we can see what we're doing to the entire scene instead of just looking at the individual cube. I'm going to open up a new window here and switch it to the node editor so that we have more room to work with. And for this we're going to add a glossy shader so that it'll have some shininess. So first we have to add a mix shader, then the glossy shader. And I'm going to open this preview so you can see what it's doing also. The roughness, if you bring it down to 0, the sharper the reflections will be, and the closer you bring it to 1, the more soft it'll be. So I want this to be about 0.5, and I'm going to change this factor for the mix shader to 0.2 so that way the diffuse shader is more dominant. So for the colors, we're going to use a color ramp, and to do that all you have to do is press Shift A, Converter, Color Ramp, and I'm going to plug this into the diffuse shader. For the colors, I'm just going to use the colors of a standard rainbow, so red, orange, yellow, and you can use whatever colors you want. It doesn't really have to follow any specific pattern, it's just your liking, because you should try to create your own special image or whatever you like. So I'm just using these standard colors, and I want these spaced evenly apart so that way each of these will have their own color and they'll have an equal chance of being picked when we use a random input, which I'll show you guys later. So as you can see, all these colors are blended together equally right now, and that's not what we want, because if we use the random node, it'll take any of these values, and that could be any color at all. It's not going to be always this red, this orange, yellow, etc. It's going to be something in between, so it could be this off green or this really bright orange or dark orange. And so to fix that, all you have to do is switch this blending mode to constant. This way it's a solid color everywhere that you look, and when we use the random input that we're going to use, it'll select the solid red, orange, yellow, green, blue, or purple, and each of these cubes will be an individual color. So to get that random node, all we have to do is press Shift A, go to Input and Object Info, and this bottom output right here is random, and if you plug it in, it uses any of these colors right here, randomly and assigns it to each of these cubes. If this cube was one entire unit, it would all be a solid color, but since the particles are separate objects, they'll each have their own different color. So for the shininess, we don't want to use this solid white color. We're going to use the color input from the color ramp, but as you can see, it looks really solid and diffuse when you do that. So we're going to want to make this a little softer and brighter. And to do that, I'm just going to add in a hue saturation node and lower the saturation to 0.75, and the value I'm going to increase to 1.25. Now you can adjust with these values to your liking, but I prefer to keep it at this right here. I'll even move the factor back to 0.5, I think. That's fine. So now I'll just close this window, and all you have to do now is just render the scene. So I'll go down to sampling, increase it to 100, and I'm going to change the tiles to 16 by 16 since I'm rendering on my CPU. And when you use CPU, you usually want to use smaller tiles because it'll help increase the render time, but for GPU you want to use larger tiles. So I'll pause the recording while I render this, and I'll see you guys later. So as you can see, the image is rendered now, and it's completely done. And if you want, you could save the image by going down here and pressing Save Image, or if you wanted, you can go on to add a vignette, and I'll show you how to do that. You can just jump over to the compositor, click Use Nodes, Backdrop, and I'll press Control up arrow to make this full screen, and I'll press Control Shift arrow while clicking this Render Layers node to open up a viewer node. This way you can see exactly what you're doing in the back. So to create the vignette, all you have to do is add an ellipse mask by going to here, and I'll press Control Shift so this is connected to the viewer. I'm going to just stretch this out to about there, and I'm going to add a blur node, change it to fast Gaussian relative, and 15 by 15, and now I'll add a mix node, change it to multiply, and then plug in the original image to this. So now you have a nice vignette around the image, and to render it you have to make sure this is connected to the composite node. And if you go down here and look at the rendered result and just click this again and connect it to the compositor, it'll render it really quickly here, and now you have a nice vignette for your color explosion. So that's it. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed and learned something from this. Please leave a comment about anything you want to see in future tutorials or any tips that you need help with. I'd love to see your results below as well. So please just leave a comment, and I hope you enjoyed. Bye.